long tangent, but hopefully that kind of answered whatever the question was when I started.
It does. Now, do you also, a question I have, do you have people trying to join your group and stuff like that often?
Sometimes we do. We get people that ask if we want help or anything. Basically, we try to keep things small as possible. A lot of the locations we go into, 3 people is all you're going to get. And we don't want people to have to sit out for a half an hour and do nothing because the location's too small for us to use 7 people. So a lot of the times, we'll go in with a small group and we'll try to conquer the whole location as best we can. Now we have a lot of groups that we work with, and we'll bring members on investigations from those groups so they can represent their group there, but not necessarily an actual part of our team. So, for example, there's an investigation coming up in November, and we're going to a place called Conover Square. If I want to say it was 125,000 square feet building. Obviously, the 3 of us aren't going to conquer that building. We'll maybe get floor 1 of 3 done. So we send the invite out to some of the teams that we work with. We know how they process evidence. We make sure they're not hostile in their EVP sessions. And I'm sure you know what I mean by hostile.
Right. But why don't you explain to the listeners?
So basically the best way to say it is if you walk into a building and you're looking for a demon and you start threatening the spirit, saying, why don't you get out here and punch me in the face, throw this light at me, throw this brick at me. It's kind of a hostile conversation. Imagine the roles were reversed. If you were a spirit, just minding your own business in the building, and some guy walks into the place you're at and starts yelling at you. How would you feel?
Well, I'd be really upset. And, I would, if I could physically hurt somebody, I probably would. Right.
So a lot of people, and I'll be the first to admit this, TV hurt the paranormal field the most because you're not getting an accurate representation of what we actually do. You're getting the TV version.
Well,
and the TV version isn't the right version.
Well, I got something to say. One of the guys was on my show, was on a national, on one of the, what's that, Travel Channel or whatever it is, where they go out and do ghost hunting and stuff like that for years. He finally left the show because he got really tired of the network. They would go out, they come back, they had nothing. Okay, the network would say, well, go back and fake it. We have to have something, to put on. So then they would go and fake it. And that does so much damage to the paranormal that...
absolutely does.
Yeah. And a lot of people think that, when you go out, you're going to get something every single time. And I bet you there's times you go out, you get nothing.
Actually, we just we did a whole day, 8 hours of going to different Black Hawk war sites. Not a single thing. Not a single thing. We went to 4 or 5 different sites. We probably took damn near 400 pictures. A lot of video, EVP sessions, ghost box sessions. You got nothing. So essentially, it was an 8-hour day just to take pictures. That was it.
Yeah. And
but when you watch the TV shows, they take an investigation, they cram it into an hour. That's part of the reason why you've got teams that are saying, oh, we're there for an hour or 2. Well, what the TV shows don't tell you is these guys spend a week on location. They're there for many, many, many days in a row. They just movie magic it together to make it seem like one night.
Yeah, but some of these groups, like I was telling you, the one group I had on my show, I mean, to them, it was more like a social gathering than actually going out and trying to prove anything. And on top of it, like I said, they wanted to get picked up by a cable channel, even a local one. They were really pushing it. But then they kind of got upset at me. I said, aren't you, when you go to somebody's house and you only spend an hour or so, aren't you actually maybe causing emotional stress on these people? Because you can't, I don't see how anybody could go to somebody's house and set up. You can't even set up in an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, could you imagine going to someone's house and saying, we've been here for 30 minutes. We think it's your dear Aunt Susie who passed away. Oh, my dear Aunt Susie. Oh, okay. Well, we just passed her on. Everything's good. All right. We'll see you later. Goodbye. And then 3 days later, all of a sudden activity's back. And now that person's thinking, well, dear Aunt Susie just passed on, these guys said. Well, now what are they going to think?
Well, how about some of the groups, and I'm not bad-mouthing ghost hunting groups, but there's so many on. Look at Facebook. I mean, there is just like, I guess, talk shows on the paranormal. But what I get upset is I've actually had some of them, that want to come on my show. When I do research on them, I start reading their postings and their websites. They charge people even. Some of these groups charge to go to your house or, to get rid of the spirits out of your house and cleanse it and all that stuff. And to me, it's like taking advantage of somebody who's going through a lot of emotional stress.
Yeah. Even 10 years later, we still get asked by people, well, how much do you charge? We don't charge anything. You just come out for free? Yeah. Why would I charge you? You're having a problem. I'm here to help you with the problem. I'm not here to take your money. Because even if you're the most world-renowned demonologist, if you're the reincarnation of Ed Warren, just because you go there to get rid of an evil spirit doesn't mean it's actually gone. It might come back.
Oh, yeah.
It might go into hiding to where you think it's gone, but it's just hiding. And I just charged you $100 to get rid of the spirit when I'm not actually 100% sure it's gone. That's not very fair.
Yeah.
Now, there are certain things we do charge for, though. We help with events like paranormal tours, where the person that runs the tour, we help investigate it. They run the tour, and they charge for the tour. And then most of the time, we just give our money, our portion of it, to whatever the building is. So, like, for example, we have a paranormal conference coming up, September 29th. And then right after the conference, we're leading an investigation of the Vets Hall. Very, very haunted building. And people pay to get into the investigation. We take them around. We show them how to use the equipment. We let them actually do sessions and the whole gambit. And then all the money that they paid to get into the investigation, we just give it to the Vets Hall then. And they use it for restoration, pay the lights, whatever they need to do, just to make sure that building is still running as a museum tomorrow, Oh,
wow. Now, hey, we're getting down to like the last 10 minutes. If somebody wants to get into ghost hunting, what do they need to start? Well,
you ask anyone this question, they're always going to tell you something different. And if you ask Dan this question, he'll probably tell you something different. In my opinion, if you really, really want to get into ghost hunting, you need to learn how to protect yourself. And I'm not talking with a gun or with a knife or with pepper spray. You have a lot of people following different religions. Some people follow no religions. And the ones that follow no religions are actually the ones that are most susceptible to attachments. You're not protecting yourself. I happen to fall into that category. I don't necessarily have a religion that I claim to be my own. So what do I do to protect myself? I find things that I have faith in. Not necessarily the religion as a whole, but a small piece of it. So, like I said before, I was a veteran. I carry a St. Michael's challenge coin in my pocket. Now, does that say I'm a Catholic? Not really. But I put my faith in St. Michael. Only St. Michael. And to me, it makes me feel better. I go on an investigation, never had a problem. Dan is more full Catholic. So he does the holy water, the cross, and the whole shebang. Our sensitive Tessa, Catholic as well. All the prayers and stuff, they do all that. You got to have something that you believe in that's going to protect you. And like, it could be anything. It could be crystals, it could be stones. I have a lot of crystals and stones. I use crystals and stones for cleansings and all that stuff because to me they work. But if they don't work for you, you got to find something that works for you. So that would be the first thing that I would say. Before you even step foot on any even a cemetery, anywhere you go to investigate, you have to be able to protect yourself. Because there's nothing worse than going out for a hobby and trying to hunt ghosts, and you actually bring something back and it attaches to your kids. Absolutely nothing worse than that.
Yeah, that would be bad. I mean, all of a sudden, you have things moving around your house. You got bad things happening or whatever. I mean, you never know.
Your kid's getting scratched. There's a thing standing in the door of your kid's room. As a parent myself, that scares me more than it's standing in my doorway.
Yeah, because you never know what type of entity you're going to end up with. I mean, it could be a real passive one, or it could be one that, it was a murderer or very demon, oriented, which... It might not be an actual demon, but as a human being, it's probably the next best thing. And because you weren't being careful, it's now attached to your 5-year-old. So once you get that under control in, whatever you want it to be, like I said, a religion, parts of a religion, whatever it needs to be, you say, this is good. I feel protected by this. Then you can start doing all your research, start picking out equipment, and of course, research is probably the number 2 most important thing. You can't just walk into a cemetery and say, hey, who wants to talk? You got to know who's there. When the cemetery was first put up, any major events that happened at the cemetery, any major people that happen to reside in that cemetery. If I'm standing in front of a stone and it says Elizabeth St. Cloud. Elizabeth St. Cloud died in 1827. Oh, okay, next stone. Tommy Rourke. Well, Elizabeth St. Cloud was brutally murdered by a man she met at the bar. Well, if you don't research Elizabeth St. Cloud, you're not going to know that something tragic happened to her, and she might be interested in talking to you. Yeah, that is so true. I mean, where I live, too, maybe about 5 miles away, there's one of our old governors, buried there, and and a few other people, like one of the very first priests in the area. So, I mean, yeah, one of these days, but I don't know.
But if you're just looking at a stone, it's just a name.
But it's funny, I've been in a few times in my life, doing photographs, when I was really into photography at one point as a hobby and professionally. I would go into like an old cemetery, and I would get, sometimes I would get no feeling at all, but then sometimes I would get this really weird feeling, like unsettling type of feeling where I wanted to leave because I didn't feel, that it was a weird feeling. Have you had those?
Right. A couple times. And sometimes that feeling leads to results, and sometimes it leads to nothing. A lot of people are of the opinion the more you look into the darkness, the easier it is for the darkness to see you.
Oh, yeah.
The more you're involved with the paranormal, the easier it is for them to realize, oh, hey, that's Ghosthunter Larry. I know that guy. And then you'll start picking up on stuff more often. Does that say every investigator is going to become a sensitive? No. But every investigator is going to probably at some point develop that gut feeling.
Yeah.
And that you got to listen to that gut feeling.
Yeah, well, sometimes some of the guests I have on here, because it's pretty much all paranormal, no
Sure.
conspiracies here thrown in. But, sometimes I kind of get the funny feeling like, I sure hate to have